I'm going to go ahead and get things rolling, and when Wilson rolls up, we can add.
We have a couple things before we get to the joint meeting, so Tony,
Still listen intensely. All right. Good evening, everyone. God, this is like this is incredible. All right. Good evening. It is Tuesday, January 21st, 2025, and I'm going to call to order the Select Board meeting at 7:02 p.m. In the room, we have Bill, Rosie, and Tom, and I believe Bill Wilson will be joining us shortly, and of course, myself. We do have an exciting agenda today, which includes a joint meeting with our favorite FinCom. But before we get to that action-packed agenda, we're going to go through a couple of announcements and board openings. Yeah, we're just waiting. Bill's coming in just a moment. All right. For our board and committee openings, we have 2 openings on the Conservation Commission, 2 associate openings on the Council on Aging, 1 opening on the Cultural Council, and 2 openings for 3-year terms, and 2 openings for 2-year terms. 1 must be a resident of the Historic District, and 1 must be a resident realtor for the Historic District Commission, and 1 at-large opening on the Human Rights Commission. As always, we would love to see folks get involved, and we know how anxious you are to do so, so please reach out to Judge Melowitz if you'd like more information on getting involved in any of our committees, councils, or boards. With that, I will allow public comment. As a reminder, 3 minutes on a topic that is not currently on the agenda. I ask that if the topic is on the agenda, you hold your public comment until time. Any in the room or online public? Oh, there's no online. Sorry. Any public comment here in the room? All right, and Bill Wilson has joined us. Welcome, Bill. We're so glad to see you.
thanks for having me.
Hope you're keeping warm out there. Next, we have 1 item on our consent agenda, which is approval of the minutes of January 6th, the Select Board meeting. Would anyone like to give me a motion?
So is
Second. All right, thank you. Are there any questions, concerns, queries, amendments, or changes to those minutes before we vote? All right, all in favor? The ayes have it. Well done. We're going to quickly run through a couple items before we open the joint meeting. The first is the approval of the common victualers license for Treat, which is the delightful new bakery that opened on Willow Street. If you haven't had their chocolate cake, I suggest you do so. I will entertain a motion for the approval of the victualers license for Treat.
Second.
Second. Any questions, comments, concerns, or queries before we vote? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Guys have it. You have your license Treat. Congratulations. The next is the delegation of the responsibility of the assignment of police officers at the annual election to the chief of police. Would you like to discuss that first?
Well, let the clerk's request.
Corinne, would you like to come take this microphone?
Well, why don't I just stand up?
Sure. You could just sing your karaoke song to get started. That would be great. Thank you.
Corinne Gale, Town Clerk. This is an annual ask I have with the Select Board. When the Votes Act passed in 2022, one of the changes in the law was it placed the responsibility for the assignment of police officers at the polling places to the Select Board. In most cities and towns, it's always been dealt with between clerks and the police chief. And so I'm then basically from this on you and ask you to delegate responsibility for the assignment of police officer to the police chief or the law.
Where is it codified that we do it?
The large one.
54, section 72 to be exact.
Okay. And we can't do like a standing.
No, you have to do it every year.
Helpings, town council said it has to be annual for sick.
Well, at least we get to see you, Corinne, even though I didn't do that thing you told me today. Sorry.
The CP more the between now and the end of college. Which is April 10th, by the way, and nomination will get this are available.
All right. So you just need a motion for the delegation of the responsibility
To the police chief.
to the police chief.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions for Corinne about this? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
With great power comes great responsibility.
Yeah.
Tell Russ.
There's the thing on what to call their meeting order.
Yeah, 7:07. We have a quorum. FinCom would like to call the meeting to order. Thank you.
Okay. evening. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for being here. The main purpose of our agenda this evening is the annual presentation of the proposed budget for the FY26 and the budget capital plan by the town manager and department heads. And how do I make this thing go loud up here? Slideshow.
At what depth had the FinCom seen this before tonight?
No,
None?
this. Why is it not up there? Sorry. Those that cookies. Joey. I'm sorry. I'm trying to get this thing working. There we go. There we go. All right. Right. All right. Thank you, everybody. We are here for the annual presentation of the budget capital plan for the town fiscal year. This is a presentation of a proposal, a draft, if you will, and we expect that the budget may change a little bit between now and the annual town meeting on April 5th. What you have in front of you is a balanced budget that considers all of our financial policies and goals. It considers all of the goals that were outlined for the upcoming fiscal year by the Select Board and the FinCom back in the fall, and it does not require an override. So we're moving forward as we do at this time, and understanding that there will be slight changes between now and then as some numbers come in a little different from what we have projected. As I said a minute ago, this is going to be a fun presentation.
Do you want to sit and face back?
Sure. Hey, good. Okay. No, I want to read off the screen here. So, as I said a minute ago, this budget adheres to the FY26 budget goals and objectives. It avoids Proposition 2.5 override. It plans for known retirements. It improves the call firefighter response and retention program at the fire department. It improves operations in planning and land use and in health and human services. And it makes some minor targeted operational changes to improve efficiency, stability, and sustainability. The house. The setup on the screen in front of you is the FY26 budget goals and objectives. I won't read through them. We've been through them a couple times, both with the FinCom and the Select Board, and they're in the packets for you, and they'll be posted online. In summary, the total expenditures for that we're proposing for FY26 are $42,900,263, or a decrease of $437,068, a 1.03% total increase over last year. The town expenses of $16,692,099 represents a decrease of just a little over $500,000, or 3.08%. And the education expenses of $26,208,164 represents an increase of 3.8%. All operating expenses are covered by the raised tax levy. One-time expenses, capital lease purchases, capital improvements, and a portion of unfunded liabilities are covered through free cash. Capital improvements are $780,045, representing a decrease from the prior year of $830,743. Our financial policies for free cash, general stabilization, capital spending requirements, and water enterprise retained earnings are all in compliance with this budget. We have some nice pictures. We are undergoing a major town hall renovation. It's not really stated in the budget documents in front of you, but one of the reasons that our capital expenses have gone down this year are because we are spending a great deal of money and effort on the town hall renovation this year. Taking on many more capital improvement projects would be difficult with our staffing, and it also recognizes the current fiscal climate. I'm going to turn it over to Wendy to talk about our revenue summary.
Okay, the total revenue, which includes the tax levy of $34 million to start, with a Proposition 2.5 of $852,000 and assumed new growth of $250,000, and debt exclusions of $1.6 million and an allowance for abatement of $250,000 equals $36,644,412. Additional income is state aid, and that's only what we know currently, which is really, it's an estimate, $1,136,000. Local receipts, we're keeping it stable at $2.8 million. The buckets are changing slightly, but the total overall is going to stay the same. And transfers from other funds, mainly coming from the enterprise, is $521,659 for a total operating funding of $41,119,598. And capital and one-time expenses of $1,780,665 is coming from free cash to balance the budget at $42,900,263.
Real quick, I just add, you can see on the screen that although we're spending $500,000 less in capital this year, you'll note that we don't have available ARPA funds or available from the assessor's overlay. So those are two those are two funding streams that we had available to us last year that we don't have available to us this year. So that kind of lines up with our decrease in capital spending.
Of the operating funding sources, the main source, of course, is the tax levy at 89%. 3% comes from state aid. Local receipts represent 7%. And the transfer from the enterprise with $2,000 from the Clark Fund is 1%. The summary of expenditures, as you can see, the different buckets: general government, public safety, Department of Public Works, Health and Human Services, Culture and Recreation, and then unclassified expenses. I've listed them there so that there's no confusion of what they what belongs in the unclassified section. The total of the operating expenditures, and we will go in detail with them further, is $42,120,219. The capital expenses, as we said, is $780,045 to balance the budget at $42,900,263. The operating expenditure buckets, this is a good picture to let you understand where the money, which departments and how much of the piece of the pie belongs to each department. Education is 62% of our budget, followed by public safety at 10%. General government is 7%. Department of Public Works, 6%, $2.5 million. Health and Human Services at nearly $400,000 is 1%. Culture and Recreations is $1,193,000 at 3%. And unclassified, which includes your pension at $1.7 million, and health insurance is $4.7 million or 11%.
So we have a little bit of, some photos here just from the year behind us. You'll see a lot of public safety. We'll have other photos throughout the course of the presentation. We see our deputy fire chief being sworn in. We see our new lieutenant getting his bars. So lots of good things happening year round here. So the proposed capital improvement plan for FY26 includes a water pickup truck, water department pickup truck that would be paid for out of retained earnings. $350,000 for roads and sidewalk improvements. This is a nod to our continued request from the Select Board and the FinCom over the last few years and the Capital Committee over the last few years to continue to improve our roads and sidewalks. About $61,000 in the facilities for Council on Aging building. $163,125 is currently shown in the library. Now, this number is still in flux. This is a number that could change. We haven't had a chance to meet together with Wenham. Wenham's request was actually different from what our Capital Committee has recommended here. So we have to get together and determine which direction we're going. There's a police cruiser, a police replacement portable radios, and then there's about $67,000 in there for other smaller projects. Again, that may drop out or get increased depending on what happens with the library. So we're holding that. In total, we're proposing $870,000 in capital expense this year, $780,000 from free cash, and $90,000 from retained earnings. This is just a little bit of a view at some of our folks up at the Patton Homestead. The first picture to the left is our Treasury Department, our newest hire, Julie, in the front. We have our new assistant to the town manager, Cindy, at the bottom, and our new planning director, Mark Lauders, who unfortunately is not going to be here tonight because he is at Planning Board. But that's just highlighting some of our new folks and good hires. Andy?
FY26 administration and finance expenditures. This includes select board, town manager, finance, assessor, treasurer, collector, human resources, town clerk, and elections and registrations. The overall increase is 2%, and I can tell 2% for the personnel expenses. And just a reminder that all personnel expenses are determined by the 5 union contracts and the wage grid that was approved by the select board. And then operating expenses went down by 0.12%, excuse me, for a total administration and finance budget increase of 1.2%. And then I can note the reasons. So personnel changes for the town manager. So within the assistant to the town manager has returned the grants and communications role, and a shift of part-time position to planning and land use outside of that role went to planning and land use, if that makes sense. There's been some changes in the intermunicipal agreements. Manchester by the Sea now leads shared conservation agent, and Wenham has ended the shared assessor agreement. Operating expenses under finance and IT. We continue to use the consultative services of what was Markham, which is now CBIZ. Also, we're highly engaged in the North Shore Regional IT Collaborative, and we also still have Andrew Wood as our IT consultant. And there are continuous increases in technological software contracts and software subscriptions. Insurance, as we have been discussing, is rising about 10%, and that includes employee health insurance, retiree health insurance, and municipal liability coverage. So those are the reasons for the change, although small, but the change.
Okay, so Wendy will go through budget part of this. We have Rich Maloney from our inspectional services department here, and as I mentioned, Mark Connors is not able to be with us. He's with the planning board tonight. Wendy?
Okay, so the planning and inspection services includes Conservation Commission, planning and inspection services. The total personnel expenses increased by 2%, and again, that's contractual. And the expenses overall, you will see on the first line, Conservation Commission, $15,800. If you remember, that was a vote by the select board to add $15,000 for a study on Tobacco woods. There's a species that is studying. I don't know the logistics, I'm sorry for the language. But that's the overall reason for the increase. The total increase is 5.5%. Noteworthy changes, the shared conservation agent for the intermunicipal agreement with Manchester by the Sea, as we said, they've taken over. Planning is more aligned between planning, conservation, and building. There will be an added part-time clerical to better support the planning and conservation. And we're forecasting a slowdown in permit requests in FY26 and continue to shift towards more of the online permitting in effort to offset this.
So I will note real quickly to those noteworthy changes. I would say that the shared conservation agent means that we represent half of the expense of the conservation agent now in our budget instead of all of it. In past years, when we were in charge of the shared arrangement, we would show all of the expense and then show some of the revenue on the other side from the other time. Now that we've switched, we only have to show in the budget our half of the expense. We do not show any revenue. The changes with the planning in my office. My previous administrator was very, very good at a lot of things, including helping our boards and committees, and she had a lot of those duties, so we were not able to have grants management and communications strategies handled out of our office as had been done previously. As you'll recall, last year, in the current year, we had planned to shift and hire a half-time person to do grants and communications. With Lori's retirement, the hire of Cindy, and Cindy has a lot of strength and a lot of experience, particularly in the communication area, we've shifted those grants and communications responsibilities back into that role, and instead I'm going to hire for a clerical person to support the boards and committees under the planning and land use department. So that would include planning, conservation, but will also include the Hamilton Historic District Commission, the Affordable Housing Trust, things that Lori had previously made. So there'll be a still staff person to help with those things. It just won't be out of our office. It'll be under Mark's direction. Next. And are there any questions for the building commissioner? So I'm going to try and do this a little differently tonight. If you have questions, we'd like to let our building department heads go home as we get through their sections. So if there are questions that you see, if you think of something after they leave, certainly you can ask me and we'll get them to get back to you. We've got 2 months before we can tell me, but I just want to offer the opportunity now if anything had pulled itself out.
Here again, just
I just have a question about the Conservation Commission. I don't know if you would have this, but has there been an agent hired yet to fill that position?
Yep. Yeah, our HR director handled that with the help of Manchester and some folks from our Conservation Commission and Mark Connors. The agent's been hired. She will start on February 11th of the year, 2 days a week.
Dove?
Thanks for that. I just have a general question. I think a lot of our free cash over the years has come from unfilled positions. Just curious as we go through the budgets, we'd be curious what positions are unfilled currently. So we have an agenda what that risk reward is and see what the planning does. So a lot of our free cash, as I said before, comes from that situation.
How about actually let our HR director handle this one? I know we're hiring and we have several positions advertised right now. So Michelle?
Not part of this, but that's okay. Right now, we have our conservation position starting on the 11th. We have our assessor's position open. We'll be doing interviews for those next week. We have 2 positions open in DPW. We are having a part-time temporary position person come in to cover those. And I believe that is all we have open at the moment.
So the part.
7.
Just my question is about the administrative role, 24 hours for the Conservation Commission that has been.
That's been advertised. It hasn't been filled yet. Yes.
Oh, okay. Then to the.
All right. You have good?
No.
All right. So moving on to the next. Here's some more photos. This is our fire department in action. You can see that our fire department does actually get out and do quite a bit. We have brush fires. We have MBTA trains hitting cars. We have cars overturning in the woods. It's been an exciting year for the fire department. Some more public safety photos. This is got some of the, I believe these shots are all from the Public Safety Day that was held
Oh, God.
this fall. What happened?
I didn't know I was in there in a fireman's uniform.
Realize that was her.
Thanks, y'all.
Yeah, it's a good photo. That's me. So this is what happens when you ask our department heads for photos.
Yeah.
All right, public safety. We have both. Is Russ here? Oh, there he is. Okay. I know we have both our fire and police chiefs here to help answer any questions. Wendy will go through the buttons.
Yeah.
There was. Okay, so looking at public safety, the personnel expenses, all contractual with the exception of the new plan to improve call firefighter response and retention. So you'll notice that went up, but partly contractual and partly because of the agenda there. So less than 1% total overall personnel expenses for public safety, and that includes police, fire, emergency report center, and animal control. Of the operating expenses, you can see quite a decrease and of 4.11%. Overall, public safety has gone up 0.25% in total. Noteworthy changes for public safety: the increased pay rate, as I said, for call firefighters to enhance coverage and retention to stay competitive. Moved vehicle lease payments out of operational budget. So actually the lease payments are in here, but they're going to be covered by free cash. Conducting police chief search starting FY26. We're continuing to plan for enhanced emergency medical response and settled contracts accounts for virtually all budgeted increases.
We have any questions for our police or fire?
I got protections with stocks.
You want to share them? Or?
Should have had Rosie sit next to me.
Russ, this would be for you. Just interested to know what the decrease in the police department operating expenses entails. It's only $22,000, but just for sake of.
At least the
Oh, right. Yes, that's correct.
police car, the lease of the car is going to free cash.
No, okay. Sorry, I hate to contradict you. I apologize. The lease
Doesn't hate that at all.
but the law changed on town meeting and how the leases work. So we actually had to pick up the lease in the FY25 budget, which is the reason why you will not see it now in the FY26 budget.
Thank you, Russ.
Another question. And I want to thank Russ. Obviously, Russ, thanks for keeping us on budget all these years. We're going to miss you. And then a 26. But I had a question for you. Just unfortunately, I'm going to lose Russ. go through search, but in terms of, we don't do this a lot, so how do we forecast that cost for the search? Is that conservative? Is that based on historical data? How are we forecasting the cost for the search?
So there's no cost for the search because can I have this?
Oh, you need to.
Oh, I couldn't have that, yeah. We're very lucky because Russ usually does these searches for the communities. And so Russ is helping us out. Russ is going to do our search at no cost to us. The forecasted changes, though, indicate, we're forecasting what the salary will be based on his recommendations and on market conditions. So there's some changes, but we're not forecasting a cost for the search. That's actually being done in FY25. So can we take the questions from the parties?
What is the logic around moving the lease payments to free cash and their ongoing?
As Wendy represented, the state law changed, and so the state law now looks at the town meeting can only consider all the cost of a thing in a given year, can't project it out to other years. So unless we phrase our questions differently, we didn't do that last year because we weren't aware of it, and it's been corrected. So we had to pay all the costs. We would have been in the second or third year of a lease payment for a vehicle that we bought in FY25. In FY26, we had to pay for it in this current fiscal year. We had to move from our men's budget. Got it.
So what, between leasing, financing, and outright buying, have we done it differently for each of the cruisers?
Russ,
So
you want to
one-
answer this? And get into your vehicle replacement?
I only ask because the cruiser in the FY26, it's the full 71,000. But that's not finance.
I think it's still.
So what happens is we get a new cruiser every year, and we trade in an old cruiser.
Yep.
This lasts approximately 6 years. By that time, 6 years of 24-hour lease are done. So we trade one in every 6 years. We get one every year. So every 3 years, we get two. We usually buy one goes into capital. What happened with the law is we spread our payments over 3 years. The law changed and said you no longer can do that unless you put it on the town warrant every year and vote on it every year. Well, we were already into the lease program before the law changed, so we kind of got caught in the middle of that, and that's why we have to do a one-time with this.
Got it. Okay.
And cozy.
Extra.
Nice to all the thing.
I think Deb wants to ask a question. Deb?
This is for the fire chief.
So you?
Yeah. I just was wondering if you could clarify. We read in the news about a grant for uniforms that was going to be withheld from the state because of the MBTA compliance. And I was wondering if you could address that and let us know whether those uniforms are still going to be purchased or if you're still out of money for that.
All right, so from the interview that we had last week with Senator Tar on the pressure that we got for Gilly, she has decided to fund all the monies for the Department of Fire Service grants. So we will be receiving all those monies that you're talking about. Moving forward, that's the way it's going to be for this time, but moving forward, other grants could be in jeopardy, as she noted in our letter to all fire departments. So we used to look forward to the 3 a.m. lines.
Yeah. Good.
Sticks.
Everybody's favorite police officer, Officer Luca, was active around town this year, as you can see from the pictures up there. We also had some other new officers that joined us. These photos show some of our new vehicles and some of our new officers, including the center picture at the top is the captain's vehicle, which is a Mustang Mach-E. It's our first all-electric vehicle, and part of the reason for bringing these on one or two at a time is to kind of determine how they work with our fleets, how they run. Are we able to keep them running? For instance, we've had a supervisor's vehicle for the DPW for about a year now, and we're finding that it's been actually difficult for Tim to manage the use of that in the wintertime because it's having to charge it twice as often as he would as he did in the summer and the better months. So
When I see it at the charger station,
all the time, right? Because the cold is just killing the battery, so it's driving the time. All right, moving into Public Works. Speaking of Tim,
Okay, Department of Public Works and Facilities includes public building and maintenance, public works, highways, snow and ice, vehicle maintenance, cemetery, waste recycling and landfill, and parks, fields, and grounds. So when you're looking at the personnel expenses, the overall is less than 1%. Now, the reduction does include a reduced seasonal staff, and it also includes reduced fleet supervisor overtime because of the above-ground tanks. So that's the main reason for the reduction then. In the operating expenses, you'll see some reductions, but then you will see in waste recycling and landfill an increase of over $44,000, and that's because market value prices and new contracts have increased for trash pickup, recycling, waste management, and compost. So the total increase in DPW is 2.12%.
Sorry, where's the? Oh, you mean from the 4,800 to the 6,300?
Yes, and so got it. Okay.
Does that include compost? Some projection on compost?
Yes. Yes. Obviously, Brickend Farms is no longer going to be in business. We're shifting to a different contract with Black Earth, and that contract is in this budget.
And thank you.
Here on your screen behind me are some of the fine folks of the Hamilton Public Works Department, including Brad to the left. Brad made the mistake of blacking some stuff over and causing me to get splashed on, so I told him I was going to introduce him to the rest of the community. So here you go. That's Brad. Does anybody have any questions for Tim about Public Works?
Tim, what's driving the decrease in vehicle maintenance? I just want to make sure we're not kind of now for later. The major decrease is just because of above ground fuel tanks. So we don't have VOT gated.
Any other questions? Oh, okay. Moving along, Health and Human Services. So, before Wendy gets to this one a little bit, we'll just note that the budgets here look fairly similar. We've done some things in planning for operations this year that don't show up in the line items here. The budgets look very similar, but we're kind of reorganizing, and there'll be a lot more vertical alignment in this department. There will be a lot more assistance, particularly to the full-time Council on Aging director, and a little bit more on. Not too much I can get into on details when discussing with the staff and who's there and who's going to be changing, what's going to be changing, but there's going to be some changes here that will make this budget work better for us going forward. And that's one of the things we talked about at the beginning as far as efficiency. Wendy?
Okay, Health and Human Services is Public Health Department and Council on Aging, and the personnel expenses, an increase of 5%, which is $12,369 relative to this budget. And the total operating expenses, you can see the veterans benefit takes the bulk of the increase of $15,671, which we do not have control over. And the total operating expenses increased by nearly 13% because of it. Total overall Health and Human Services of a nearly $400,000 budget was nearly 8%, or $29,000.
Any questions about the budget?
Just a comment. And a quick comment regarding Health and Human Services. There's much ado about this increase in the Health and Human Services budget, but let's remember the Council on Aging gets less than 1% of our budget, and I think it's only fair and right that they be given more consideration.
Yeah, I appreciate it. We're working to make sure that there is more support and more staff there from Council on Aging, and we think the realignment here is going to net that out. So we'll start with this step, and if we get into the budget year FY26 and there needs to be more changes, we'll look at that. So with FY27, we just keep working open. So we are making changes that should impact positively the operations and Council on Aging.
I'm sorry, Joe. This is related to that question. Earlier in the budget, there was a $61,000 increase to the Council on Aging building. Does that pertain specifically to the senior center?
Yes.
Okay. So can you just enlighten us as to what that improvement might be?
So, Tim, do you want to go through what the 61 was going to get us? we're gonna finally finish the wall, the interior wall. We're gonna make some cosmetic changes to the outside painting and scraping and painting, clean up dormers and things around and make it look
Right.
better. And we're gonna be in this fiscal year, in FY25, we're gonna try to address the walkways, particularly the walkways from Bay Road in
That's right. That's
I'm
right.
running in this area. We're gonna use that. We're gonna address those as part of one sidewalk projects.
Okay, because
All
that's
that's going to
pretty-
get done in the current fiscal year.
Yeah, that's a pretty undulating sidewalk, and
Yep.
seniors need to have a level service, a level surface for safety. Thank
So
you.
we're working on. Yep.
Was any of this, so we had the presentation, when was that? 6 weeks ago? Were there any official budgeting asks that came out of that presentation? I know there was that some of the 61,000?
There was a request really that particularly on capital side, and Tim and I are already working on it. Like I said, the sidewalk part we're going to try to get done in FY25 with existing funds. We'd already talked about what we need to do to address making sure we finish the wall and the other exterior improvements. There had been an ask in the capital for a little bit more than this. The capital committee recommended this amount. After talking it over with Tim, we figured we've kind of outlined work that we can get done with the amount the capital committee recommended.
Great. Thanks.
You can have that. You want to give the next screen?
Absolutely. Next up, we have. Oh. Oh, no, right. I thought it was education. I was like, here.
It's just
Here we have culture and recreation, which includes culture and recreation, and the library.
a little more detail. Wendy will take
I'm going to give it to Wendy.
As Caroline said, culture and recreation includes the library and your recreation department. So you'll notice in the personnel expenses, recreation decrease of $38,000, and that was for the director of Patton Homestead. And then the library, we're looking at an increase of about 3%, and recreation overall, if you look at the relevance of it, almost $2,000. It does equate to 9%. Total operating expenses decrease, by 0.5%.
So I have to that's the total operating expenses solicitation.
Well, no. So that is the total that we pay for out of the general fund, understanding that the recreation department also has a revolving fund that is at $750,000 a year.
There it is.
All of the $750,000 is raised by fees that users pay to and access those programs, and it stays in the program. So the revolving fund includes all the revolving fund operations for the pool, the summer parks program, and all the other wonderful programs that Sean and his crew run every year. Some nice pictures at the bottom from the library and from the pond, which looked very nice to skate on last week. And then education. Sorry, roll back.
I always have to have a question.
So my question is specifically pertaining to the director of the Patton Homestead. So we no longer have a dedicated director. Okay, so I know that, is it going to be Tim? Is the,
Sean.
Sean, okay, Sean is going to be the director. So will you be embarking on public activities the way the prior homestead director did to help defray costs of the homestead? So I'm wondering how that's going to work.
Hi, Sean Timmons, Implement Recreation Director. Yes, that's the idea. So I think we're going to try to be as consistent as possible with what's been done in the past there, and then look to build and improve on, potential programming. Just in general, a lot of the activities in the programming that our department did down there was more like our normal programs, our normal activities just running down there. But things like the music series and those types of deals, we're going to be currently working on trying to get stuff lined up for this.
Okay, and so when we think about activities that go on down there, sometimes there are weddings and private affairs. So who will manage those now? Will you be managing those?
Yeah, so we'll manage the process to reserve it, and then through Joe's office and with Cindy, I think we're all going to kind of work as a team to try to kind of manage those events. Most of the events, because I was involved in this last year, most of the events down there previously were a lot of kind of events that the town.
Child community events, right.
So there weren't as many rentals as much as it was sort of town driven events.
Which I certainly agree with. I think it's a great asset for the town if we can continue to employ it. Okay.
But there's not a program coordinator position there. To do that, you're going to absorb that amongst your team.
We're gonna,
Yes.
considering that, like right now, the town offices are running out of the building. Most of the programming, even when all was here, was for the outdoors portion of the property. So as we get into and get closer to finishing the town hall renovation and plan for the eventual return of town staff to the town hall, the town has to have a real good study it, look at what's the best outcome for what we do with the property and how we manage it going forward. I think that the task force a couple of years ago recommended that if we weren't able to find a way to make more revenue out there, we might need to look into selling the buildings. And I think that's something we will, I know that's something we will look at this year.
Right.
We do think that it's still valuable for the town as a resource to maintain the 19 acres of open space that we could continue to utilize, but separate out the principal buildings, which are really the cost center, and an appropriate amount of land around them, maybe 3 or 4 acres, and sell the houses. We have to determine what we think the best use of that would be. Does it revert to residential use, or is there some other use that could find that? We're going to be doing a lot of investigation with that this year.
Joe.
On the patent homestead, we did look at this a couple years ago.
Yep.
The conclusion that we came to is the facility as it is doesn't really have potential to make money for the town. If it was a different building in different condition, it might be more attractive to do weddings and events. But the building itself really doesn't offer much, and the outbuildings, the stable, it does cost the town about $100,000 a year to maintain the property and keep it running. Cut the grass, plow snow, everything. So we'll happily take a look at it again. It's a tremendous asset, but it costs money.
Can now the 15 buildings.
And we probably will look at a potential sale and see what kind of value that might bring. But I think it's probably every 3 years we probably have to look at this. I think this year we'll do it again.
Yep. Yeah, that's the point. And hence, we don't need to hire somebody that we may want to turn around. Yeah, just we say so. All right. Education.
Okay, go ahead.
I was just saying, bear in mind that the education expenses here include both the Hamilton Wenham Regional School District and the Essex North Shore Agricultural and Technical School.
So the first line item is the Hamilton Wenham Regional School District assessment, which is a little over $1 million or 4.63%. You can see the debt service is going to decrease by a little over $150,000, and that pretty much is a pass-through to the debt exclusion. And the Essex North Shore Tech, we do not actually have solid numbers, just so you know. I have a call out to them on the 23rd for preliminary numbers, which I am feeling somewhat confident in these numbers based on enrollment hasn't shifted and knowing the debt service amount. So total education increased by nearly $1 million or 3.83% at $26,208,163.
What caused this sort of like exponential increase in the Essex Tech between 3 and 4, and then it seems like
They got more students from Hamilton.
and it has just continued to.
I mean, the price per student adjusts a little bit every year, but the biggest jump was because they started, more students from Hamilton started attending.
It's very popular.
Yeah. Wendy's favorite topic, unclassified expenses.
Yes. So unclassified expenses total of nearly $5.5 million includes some big ticket items. One of them is salary reserve, Medicare taxes, and health benefits. As we discussed, the health benefits are going up about 10%. So the total increase is $92,525. Total for three categories is 7.5% increase. Capital spending, as you can see, that's why our the town budget has decreased at nearly 51%. Then another one is debt service, so that small decrease in debt service. And then you can see state assessments, a small increase. The retirement is quite the burden at an increase of $258,000 or 17.66%, and that is an actual appropriation letter from Essex Retirement. Unemployment, we decided to decrease it just for the fact that we do not see as big of an expense lately. The other insurance of $351,000, an increase of nearly $9,000. Overall, it's increasing, but it's a 2.5% based on the actuals. And then you can see the transfer to special revenue of $235,000 to continue with the financial policy. Transfer to OPEB trust, $125,000, which has been an ongoing Hamilton ask. And we do not need to transfer to stabilization this year. We are in line with the operating budget numbers. And a transfer to the agency HDC, which is a new policy, which is more in line with what the policy says. And basically the policy states that you will use the meals tax from the last finalized fiscal year, which would be FY24, and that was $78,702. So total decrease here, mostly because of capital, and of course, we do not have form-based zoning this year, is a decrease of nearly 11% or $675,000. Thanks, ma'am.
What each year? Let me what special revenue?
Special revenue, that's the capital revenue, capital stabilization, excuse me.
Oh, but capital city. Yeah.
What? Yes.
Stars, pretty.
And what's the weird trend line on unemployment?
So,
I think it's down from COVID.
yes, I think going back a few years, we had a lot of high-end unemployment costs, and we were doing a lot of the management of those ourselves. So there were costs on both sides of the unemployment picture for us. The last couple of years, you've seen that come down dramatically. That's the current state of the economy. Not a lot of people are, being laid off as things. That's good. But also, we've worked with Maya, and they're providing us a service that's taking some of the administrative costs of it and off of our hands as well. So we've been able to keep that number really down low. In a tight budget year, we thought we could shave $5,000 off and try and still be above what our normal spend been in the last 4 years.
And it's important to identify that we do not pay unemployment tax, so we have to pay $1 amount of the unemployment benefit.
So wait, are we missing a zero here, or okay? So it was 3,500, and then this is when we hired somebody, which 35,000,
No, the first 2 years are actual years.
right?
So those budget years, we were carrying $35,000 as well, but we didn't spend it. So,
Got it.
so this year now we're seeing, okay, the trend is that it's been under $5,000. So why are we carrying $35,000 in the budget? We'll bring it down a little bit. We'll probably continue to look at this every year, but as Wendy said, since we don't have unemployment insurance, we have to pay for every dollar of unemployment that gets awarded. So in the minute I have somebody at a high salary that goes out with 6 months left in the year, I'm going to have a lot of expense there. So got it. And then if we have to try to hedge our bets a little bit.
So just to be clear, the meals tax, HDC, that's consistent with the policy we're going to vote on?
The policy says the last finalized fiscal year, which would be FY24, and those are the exact dollars.
Yeah.
Is that the thing we voted on?
We didn't ever vote at the next meeting.
Okay, so that's
The
proposed policy.
Proposed policy that the select board would be at the next meeting on
And the FinCom's already.
FinCom's already.
That it's actual receipts.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
It's much the same. And as Wendy noted at a recent meeting, when you look at the history of the last, since HDC was implemented or founded, creating, what we've been spending over that time was only off $5,000, based on this policy. So we were doing pretty much the right thing all along, but this is a good way for us to know exactly what that is instead of having to try to figure it out year to year. Yeah.
We don't think with the form-based code, we'll see some incremental cost due to the pause and restart and maybe possible rework.
well, I'm going to do my best to make sure there's not a change, because they shouldn't be charging cited to the 2 months that they haven't worked on it. And we're going to put them back to work. We'll go back to cost. And the other thing is, it's going to be FY25 expense anyway, so you would see that in FY26. We're going to have to, if there's additional funds that are needed, we're going to have to dig into our budget to try and find savings within the current fiscal year. Okay. Water enterprise?
Okay, water enterprise. So the biggest change here is debt service and operating capital. So the problem with the debt service is you can see FY24 actual and FY25 budget. There was no change, but there actually was a change. So that's why you're seeing such a large increase, because we did not capture the change. We did not have the figures in front of us. So the debt service, those are the actual figures that we need to pay in FY26. So that's where the increase is. And then operating capital increased by $266,000 for a total increase of $400,000 or 17.3%.
Does she want to elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah.
Yep.
Understand.
Yeah.
Sure. Tim, do you know what the capital, the specific one?
Yep. That's why we bring our department heads to see. I do sports straight. Do you have the book? For a second.
I do not. It's the GSC.
I don't have it.
I don't have to motion up. To be honest with you, that number doesn't seem correct to me, but I don't know why there would be something. It doesn't have the breakdown in front of me.
And then all this around.
But you don't look at it just seems a little out of the ordinary. I mean, that could have been a number error, but I'll have to look into it. I'll look at the phone, but I don't have it right. I mean,
Yeah.
Is it that fleet of leaf blowers so you're trying to get past it?
because of the is it because of the lease vehicles?
I honestly, I'm sorry. I don't have it in front of me. I can't speak clearly, but
Let me see if I can find the email that I sent to Wendy, and I'll get back to you.
So that this change, if it does change, it doesn't impact the budget. It would just impact.
the water price is separate. Correct.
So we'll go back and
Apologize that we didn't have these facts in front of us. I'm sorry.
We discussed this on Iverson.
No, we'll see. So I'll just say that I think that we'll have an answer for you at the meeting on the 3rd. We will explain what happened here. This may be an error, and if it's not an error, we'll have the explanation for you. I apologize. This is not part of the fact. It's not part of your tax rate. It's part of the water enterprise fund. And even with this number, we weren't anticipating having to ask for the water rate increase this year anyway. So it's not going to impact ratepayers. It's not going to impact taxpayers. And this was honestly the last budget we put together, and I won't make excuses. I feel like we might have to fix this. It's like, see, right? Okay. And the last slide.
Well, was there any hard capital discussions for water this year? And I didn't see any, other than a truck.
The only thing that we had on there was a truck. So I don't. So there had been a suggestion for us to do some more water line work, but we were waiting to have the retained earnings built up. We're carrying a lot of debt right now in the water retained earnings, and we're really resistant. We've discussed this over the last 3 or 4 years with FinCom several times. The goal right now is to not do any new projects with borrowed cash. We're going to continue to let the retained earnings build up and then try and do projects with the retained earnings. So we weren't planning any water projects this year. Capcom had asked us to look at it again. We did, but we still feel that financially, fiscally, the thing to do is to wait till we have the retained earnings build up a little bit more. So we're not recommending any water projects. The only capital in there right now is the truck. So that number is off. We'll get you an answer as to what happened. I can read it with the mayor fathers.
And a pre-treatment plant is up and running, and this debt service is in reference to that.
That service is more in reference to a lot of the other water main work and stuff that's been done around town. Remember, right before I got here, a few years before I got here, the town agreed to take out $10 million of debt, and so that's the debt service from $10 million. A lot of the water treatment plant was paid for by ARPA, and so we did not carry that much debt on that.
I found some facts.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so I do have some facts in front of me, and you know what, Tim and I will also take a look at it just in case. We do have water capital hydrants and meters for replacement, and a big chunk of it is $136,000 for water phase 5.
So that's gonna wind up coming out because we're not moving forward with that this year. Unless, Tim, is that for the design of water phase 5?
We already have that budget.
So, okay, so that's the 136 of that is gonna come out. We're gonna have to adjust that.
Okay, sorry, so it might be a continuing appropriation. Also, the same thing for the lead service line as well, as part of that for $150,000. So we will look at the continuing appropriations if we've already captured it, and we do apologize.
That's why we ask you to ask us questions.
I mean, just to clarify, the retained earnings is what, 700,000?
It's just about $800,000 right now. Right. And in order to do water treatment phase 5, I think we need almost $2.5 million.
Go. So, if that 343 goes down, let's say by 100,000, that 100,000 would just sit in retained earnings. Right. All right. So because it wouldn't be spent. Right. The Capcom did raise $2.5 million line item. Joe's approach of trying to build up some retained earnings rather than hit water rates is sound financially. Really, the question is there anything urgent, Tim, that we need to be doing in water in the next year or two that we're not doing? And I think that's really the question here. All right. I think the rates have built up the retained earnings, but what's the state of the state?
Right. So I think remembering back that what's currently on the books, I think we're in fairly good shape with a couple projects that are sitting there. We did get some grants. We funded the media replacement with a grant. So there's $200,000 left on the books right now for the GAC media. When that gets spent, say next year, a year from now, or whatever it is, we have $200,000 for that. We also have the phase 5 design that is funded. We are currently working on that. We're working through like 60, 70% design right now. So that's pretty healthy there. So I don't have anything really large coming from water that we need money for right now. We're planning for future work. And when that comes, I'm hoping that the retained earnings are built up enough that we can fund it with those earnings and not fund it.
Thanks, Tim. And one other point, we have been talking about water quite a bit, and I think we agreed that at town meeting, we're going to ask Tim and Joe to give a bit of an overview in the reports. Say, hey, what's going on with water? Here's what's going on. And one final point is that service line, that is paying down, I think, what is about $5.5 million that's still sitting on our balance sheet from prior projects. So we spent lots of money. And I think we're being really prudent, but we still have a fair amount of debt that we're trying to pay off. So it's kind of a balancing act. But really the question is there anything risky that we're turning a blind eye to? It doesn't sound that way to me. Thanks, Tim.
Where did we net out with outreach to residents who had aging pipes that they needed to replace? Wasn't that one of our high threat items?
For the lead line stuff, right? Tim, was that part of the lead line stuff?
Well, that's the yeah. I know that was a big, great unfunded mandated EPA DEP regulation. It was the lead service assessment that we just did. Thanks to everybody that participated. So what we had to do was build an inventory of all the services in town, both on the public and private side. So we are busy working with that. We have a good amount of data from the private side. Still looking for some more data. The more data we have, the better model that we can put together that gives us a better idea of what we have in the system. Pretty confident there's no lead service in the system. From some of the guys that have been here for 40 years, that recently retired, they didn't see any lead services in town their time here. And our lead and copper sampling that we do yearly does not result in any higher lead levels or anything like that. So I'm pretty confident there's no lead service in town, but we still have to prove our case through DEP and EPA. So that is coming. There is another round of grants that I was going to go after. And until that time, we're handling it in-house through appointments and things like that. So we're building on the inventory, but we're also trying to develop a model that DEP and EPA will accept, that we are confident, level of confidence that we don't have any lead services. So,
But even without lead services, what about integrity of pipes?
Leakage.
Remember the
so integrity of, yeah, so that we've done series of, that's where phase 5 will be.
Got it.
So we've done phase 1 to 4 since 2012. I think we put in close to probably $15 million in pipe replacement, system upgrades, things like that. So that's what we're building for. Budgeting the way, or rate setting, I've tried to get to a certain point every year to build up on those retainer rates. So every, maybe say 5 years or so, we have enough money to do a project. That's currently under design right now.
Thank you.
Every track method type reduction of leakage and average include that. Is that going?
Track inflow and outflow, inflow and infiltration.
So we do. When we do my ASR, the annual statistics report, every year we track unaccounted for water.
How are we doing? Trending moment.
We're usually the target is 10%. We're usually just under that. So that's a pretty tight system. For the age and how large our system is, that's a pretty good.
Where will retail energy go?
I think around 16, maybe 14, 16%, something like that. So we've had some benefits. But also the quality of the water is also a benefit of it.
Yeah, to Tim's comment about the quality of water, obviously, everybody knows about the treatment plant, the improvements, the upgrades to the treatment plant. Tim told us in the department head meeting this morning, testing at the after the secondary treatment now is continuing to show exactly what we wanted to show. TTHMs are way down under required levels, and we're at almost a zero detect on PFAS. So if you're on town water, you're getting really probably the cleanest water you've had to get in a long time. We continue to make the improvements that we can make. There continue to be challenges as far as resiliency of the water supply system and things that we're working on a regional approach to with the North Shore Water Resiliency Task Force. I actually have a meeting with them coming up next month, on February 5th. So I'll be able to provide the update that Charles looking for on the resiliency side back to the meeting as well.
Tim, I only drink Hamilton water.
We see your recycle bill.
He doesn't drink often, but when he does, it's good.
Are there any fiscal policies on retained earnings or on use of or percent of
Yes,
total budget?
Yes, 20%. You have to keep.
Yes.
Right. Free cash.
So free cash was certified on September 18th, 2024 at $4,512,906. Of that, $500,000 was voted on for the Town Hall building project at special town meeting, which left the balance of a little bit over $4 million, taking the financial policy of the 5% reserve from the FY25 operating budget. It's a little over $2 million, which leaves about $1,993,000 left. Capital expenditures, $780,000. Planned retirements, almost $38,000. The fire department lease purchase, as we said, now considered more of a loan, $111,000. OPEB transfer of $125,000, which has been consistent. We are supplementing a portion of the pension appropriation to alleviate the burden of $550,000. The one-time expense for the general code software for the town clerk to help with the zoning laws, $15,000, zoning bylaws, and then to replenish a portion of the capital stabilization that was taken for the fire truck of $235,000, and accounting for some prior year bills that you will see at the annual town meeting of $13,000, leaves a remaining of $125,000.
To be clear, that's $125,000 above our 5% reserve request for performance.
For OPEB. No, sorry, above the reserve. Sorry.
Above the reserve.
So how does the OPEB transfer and the retirement payouts that are in free cash align with the unclassified?
What do you mean? Sorry, on site.
Yeah, so transfer to OPEB in unclassified is $125,000.
Right.
So your budget includes all of your expense and all of your revenue for the given fiscal year. So all the general fund expenditure is included in this budget, whether the funds come from the tax rate or whether they come from free cash.
So this is just outlining that it's
Outlining where it's coming from.
where it's funding from. Got it. Okay.
Yes.
Get question. What balance? Champions.
Yeah, I mean, that's just a partial source of the funding on pension transfer, which we haven't, I think that's not long when you're Joe, we haven't done this in years past, but we had the free cash and we needed to do it to balance the budget, which is the reason why we're doing it.
That is correct.
So the
But it also falls in line with the financial policy of free cash. It says that we can use it to fund unfunded liabilities. Yep, just want to be clear that.
So the totality of OPEB is coming from free cash, the totality of pension transfer, and then just a portion of retirement. Right.
Correct.
Are we, like, just project this 2 or 3 years in the future? Are we going to walk into an override that includes the pension transfer?
So I guess, so every year the budget process starts with a 5-year look back and then a look ahead. And every year the goal is to get to the next fiscal year balanced, as balanced as you can be. Projecting out too far is kind of a really dangerous game because you really don't know what kinds of conditions might change that will help you in a year that aren't currently in front of you. So there are things that I'm looking ahead to now that I would be doing anyway, that if we're able to do them for FY27, they might help us avoid. I'm not looking at more use of free cash on unfunded liabilities. Like there are other operational things that we could change, we can make, but that will take time to do that we couldn't do in time for FY26. So if you just said, if you take this year's budget and move it forward with expected increases and take this year's revenue and move it forward with expected increases, are we going to have an override in FY27? Maybe, probably. But I don't necessarily think that that's the way to look at it because I think we'll do a lot of work in the next 6 to 8 months before we even get into the budget process for FY27 to try to find ways to stem our expense growth.
Totally understood in that point. Sorry, but like do we anticipate this pension transfer always with in free cash going forward, or do we hope to move it back into the upper?
I hope to move it back. We'll do our best to move it back. But you know.
I just want to also just bring attention to the fact that we've had a bit of free cash because we've had extra money in the budget. And so we're cutting back the budget and using free cash to pay for previous budget. So we're sort of a double whammy. If we have a really tight budget, we're not going to have free cash and we're going to have those expenses next year. So it's sort of not just about spending the free cash, it's about how tight our budgets are for next year. So nothing, just something to think about it and acknowledge. Sort of, it's a double-edged sword, right? It's not just one of them. It's both of them are affected. So.
Can I say something? Yeah. I think to Joe, to follow up on that point, I mean, during our quintuple meeting with the schools, Vinny had mentioned probably a $2 million ELD issue next year, but they'll look for opportunities, you know, much like you just said, if they roll the budget over with known increases, it's about $2 million. Would you say we're in that ballpark as well based on this, or much less than that?
Well, I don't think we're $2 million because
I'm just looking at this 1.8. Well, but I know these.
Other than the $550,000 to pension transfer, most of those other things are things we do every year. So the big change is the $550 this year, and again, I'm looking at least 2 items that I don't want to get into details, but I'm looking at 2 things that might save us as much as $600,000 next year. But no, they haven't come to fruition yet. I don't know what other things might happen between now and next year that will change expenses. So it's hard to check out too far.
I just want to say, although I have the privilege of sitting up here and presenting this budget, the department heads here are extremely conscientious of their budgets. They work hard. Obviously, they understand their budgets. They manage it day in and day out. And I want to thank every single one of them for all their help and support with this budget process.
George.
It stole my thunder.
I'm sorry.
So I've been here 6 years. I feel like every year we have different challenges. Every year we work really closely with both the FinCom and the department heads to find a way to get to a balanced budget. My expectations will continue to do that. Can I guarantee you that we'll never have to ask for an override? No, I absolutely cannot. And, you know, but we're going to do our best every year to avoid an override if we can. And that's just what we're supposed to do our jobs. So,
Yeah, I'll just make a couple of comments. One of the things that we do at the FinCom is we sit and look at the current year, but we also look where we've been, where might we go. So let me just give you a couple of comments. One, every year, the school expenses, which is 60% of our budget, fluctuates plus or minus 1% above and below 60%. So this year, it went above 60%. The last couple of years, it was below 60%. So that being the largest, elephant in the room, we're trying to co-manage that with the school district. But we're watching everything, and we're watching the trends. And right now, I don't see any trends that are troubling to the extent that we should change a decision in the near term. We haven't had it. When's the last time we had an override in town for operations? It's been a while. Is it likely we might have an override in the next year or two? It's possible. But I'll just say that we're trying to collaborate with everybody and engage with our largest spender, which is the school district, and have really good conversations and expose all the decisions that are being made in the town and in the school district. So every time I see the audited financials come down in February, I make a comment that we've got an excellent credit rating. We have almost no commercial tax base in town. It's all on the backs of the shareholders, or on the taxpayers, the residential taxpayers. So given that we have literally no growth in, the revenue streams, I think that this little town of Hamilton is doing a pretty good job. We will alert people if we see anything. But keep in mind that things have been pretty stable and pretty healthy. And I think the most important thing we can do is protect that credit rating going forward. Hopefully they're not coming here with the firemen.
Tax dollars at work. So I had a question or comment too. I mean, I applaud, right? We're only have a 1% increase in our budgets for the year, but that doesn't mean our tax rate's going to go up. Right? It tends to go down, correct? Because of assessment, as a property assessment and other things like that, right? So I know we're not prepared to talk about that today, but it doesn't, I'm just trying to think about how it affects, some people may not be affected, some people may have it paid out of either, what type, whether it's paid out of your tax rate or your tax base or your assessment or other fees and time.
Yeah, the one thing that I encourage people to do is bring good ideas forward. So basically what you've got up here is a bunch of residents who volunteer to co-manage the town with the town manager. And then over the school side, you've got a bunch of residents who are volunteering to co-manage the school district. And all of us coming together, I think it's a very good story. Now, are there other ideas or other scenarios out there that people could bring to the table that we're blind to? When we get into the new school conversation, there's going to be a big new school warrant article. But we could talk about a couple of other scenarios, like what are they? So if people think we're leaving some good ideas on the table, and put them up here on the table, and let's talk about them if we can.
Game and Wardrick tomorrow night.
Yeah.
Take the back one.
Are there any other questions?
It's not a question, but I think to add to what John said, I do think this is a very important pie chart is 89% of, 89% of the revenues come from the taxes that we pay, but also the tax rate between what we pay and our commercial is the same, right? So you take a Beverly, which, the commercial tax rate is 22% and the property tax rate is 10%. So even the differential with what we're paying commercial versus residential is very different. And I've joked that it's like Spirit Airlines, right? You pay for exactly what you get. And if you stop paying for it, you don't get it. And so when we look at the future, there isn't a pot of money that really doesn't come from us. And so we're not going to be increasing our commercial tax base. Even if we did, the rate of commercial is not meaningful in any way. And so there's this myth out there that even if we were to build, no, we live in a town that will have very high taxes, and we are the Spirit Airlines. We pay for everything we get. And so we have to decide whether we want it. And if we want nice things, we pay for nice things. And there is not a way around that. There isn't a magical solution whereby we, build a Trader Joe's and suddenly our tax rate goes down. Whether you want or don't want a Trader Joe's, I think we have to be realistic about what that will or will not mean. And I think the other thing we're looking at is these increases that we cannot control, that those of us, we feel about our personal lives, right? My insurance went up through work. I'm suddenly paying another $250 a month, but my salary didn't go up, right? But I think we have to bring some of that common human denominator to this conversation, because I have heard some disconcerting conversations about people aren't managing the budgets, or we're allowing people to inflate budgets, or people are spending erratically. And having been part of this process, nobody is doing that. There's not a person who's trying to, steal from the coffers and do something. It's just that, again, Spirit Airlines, everyone, you want to see, you pay for it.
That example, they're in bankruptcy right now.
Yeah, well, I think that's a good example, actually.
Well, hopefully we're not going to follow that path. But I get it, everything you just said, but there is definitely things, and was said earlier. Yeah, we're volunteering here, right, to help out. But it's almost a perfect storm. There's a lot of costs in our town right now. I invite everyone to go back to the last school budget meeting on the 16th. They did a state of the facilities. So they went through every building and they talked about what's wrong in the building. So expect a lot of capital improvement costs over the next 5 years. They didn't say this, but in the other buildings that are remaining. So that's going to come ahead of us. So we're going to want to understand that as well. But on the capital piece, great job on all the operating expenses, as well as calling out, some small capital improvements, and also recognizing that we're doing a lot of work on the new town hall. Since all the work is together, though, what I would like to do in a future meeting is bring that 5-year capital roadmap that the capital committee puts together. There's other things the town wants to do. I know the downtown district, I had some improvements that come to us on. We've got some other things we'd like to do, but maybe now, since things are fresh, we should probably look at that and see what lies in the next 3 to 5 years.
Since Tim is still here, as far as the downtown improvements go, through the conversation with the Capcom and the Department of Public Works Director, we recognize that we have to move that project along further to get closer to really knowing what the cost will be and how we can phase it. Tim, do you want to give an update on your conversation with BSC Group on moving that plan forward?
Switch.
So as you're aware, BSC Group did a conceptual type look downtown, involved curb, sidewalks, and kind of a beautification project of the downtown area. Railroad, Willow, Asbury, that little kind of square piece of downtown. Talking with HDC, talking with Joe, we've re-engaged BSC Group to provide us 75% design documents. I believe for a nominal fee, I'd be able to cover that under Chapter 90. That's Chapter 90 appropriate project. So that's kind of where we're at. Talked to BSC, they're excited to get re-engaged with the town. And then just preparing the request, the Chapter 90 request with an updated proposal from them. I think a series of questions. I just have to get back to them and talk to them. But excited to move forward and bring that design closer. With the design will be some construction estimates and potential phasing and things like that. So more to come on that, but they're excited to work with us.
Thanks, Tim.
Deb?
Sorry, I just want to thank you guys. That was a really good presentation. And thank you, Bill, for your comment. I think that was just spot on, that there's like it's a double whammy. So I applaud, the town for making it a balanced budget and doing it out of the motivation because the school has a problem with their spending. And so we're kind of doing everything we can so that there's not a debt override. And I think we're doing that because everyone knows that with the school on the budget, on the warrant, that we don't want to have, we want to be fiscally sound when we have that so that the school has a better chance of passing for people. But the perfect storm is there. And that pie chart is shocking, right? Like 62% is from something that we can't really control and we don't have any authority over, it seems like. So I'm just wondering, is that true? And is there any way that there can be an audit of the maintenance of these facilities? Because I understand that the middle school and high school now needs to be replaced, and that was mentioned, at the meeting. And, the elementary schools are in bad shape. And when they take the excess and deficiency and they apply it to salaries, that's monies that would be used to help maintain the buildings. And I'm just wondering how many years that's been going on and what power do you guys have to help advocate for fiscal and facility management? Because we just end up paying for it and then they aren't accountable. And I just don't understand how that works. And I just want to thank you for that. And if there's any way to really advocate for truly what's going on and audit the maintenance records, because if we're just always borrowing from capital improvement and putting it into operating, of course we're going to do new buildings every time the debt is paid off. So I just thank you for that. And just, if you can help us advocate, that'd be great.
So I can tell you real quick. So there's a group that we refer to as the 5 chairs meeting. So everybody knows about the quintuple boards meeting that happens twice a year now. Under the terms of the regional agreement, the quintuple boards meeting only has to happen one time a year. It has to happen so many days before the school committee votes to adopt their final budget. Over the last 3 or 4 years, by working closely with the school administration, we've actually worked in an extra quintuple boards meeting and several other smaller meetings. Sometimes it's the chairs of the 5 boards that would be in the quintuple boards meeting, and sometimes it's just the admins, myself and Wendy, or Eric and Vinny. We get together, we start checking in August and start just working on trying to build the budget and helping them identify what is possible in a given year. And it's been a better process. At the same time, this Hamilton Select Board and the Wenham Select Board last year did ask the school committee to consider reopening the regional agreement to make a bunch of changes. The last 5 boards meeting was just a couple of weeks ago, and they laid out kind of some of the ideas of what we want to tackle in reopening the agreement. Things like the apportionment, how it gets, currently it shifts on an every 3 years basis, the average of 3 years, how you determine the apportionment each year. We're going to look at that as part of the regional agreement. We're going to look at a number of different things, 5 or 6 things. We'll get the bulletin list up on the town website. So our next meeting was to talk with the 5 chairs to talk about the regional agreement with the attorneys is, I believe, February 12th. So we're continuing to make efforts on that. We are going to be constrained because state law says that school budgets are the domain of school committees. That's whether you're in a regional district or a district under a municipality. And we're complicated because we're in a regional district, so our influence is even more diluted. But there are things we're going to try to do contractually in updating the regional agreement to help us get some more voice in the school department budget process, some more representation, and some more understanding on all sides of the issues in front of us. So we are working on that at the same time that we're working to balance the budget this year. Anybody else? I want to thank everybody so much for coming out in the cold, braving this cold, cold weather. I hope you've all got remote starters and your car's warming up. And as always, you can send any questions or concerns you have to the town manager. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Steph, you want to go first, Dumbledore?
We'll get on with Jerome.
I move that FinCom adjourn for the evening.
Session.
Opposed? In favor? It's unanimous.
FinCom, and such a votes.
We voted last week.
Second.
All in favor? Aye, so adjourned.
Still, it's about 8:26.